This is a thought in response to the worldly church, and specifically I'm listening to something called the Marriage Hour by Dennis Prager, where he talks about man-woman relationships, mostly in marriage, and he has this concept that the idea that one should never get divorced is faulty, because no one, he analogizes it to a job, whereas if you had a job where you knew you could never get fired, sneeze cam, if you had a job where you knew you could never get fired, it's human nature, you would not do your best. You would become complacent, lazy, ineffective, maybe even destructive, but just human nature. If you don't have the motivation of better get this right or I'm going to get fired, and thought, well, that lines up perfectly with religion, because it's the beatings or the blessings, it's the carrot or the stick. And so he basically has those two ways of looking at it. And again, I was thinking about the worldly church, because it just transfers everything we experience as human beings into our relationship with God, instead of the other way around. Because God never said he'd fire you. And I agree. I mean, I understand they believe that he will fire you. He will fire you. But the embracing or the rejecting is all in your hands. And I understand, again, religion does not want to accept that, but it is all in your hands. He made himself totally vulnerable. He exposed himself totally. I mean, he went to the cross. How much more vulnerable can you get? Here I am, I give myself for you. He did it. He did all of it, and you can still reject that. So clearly, that is not a statement of, you better get it right or I will fire you. That was a statement of, I love you. Do you want my love or don't you? Because unlike in a marriage, God's love is a love that actually transforms who you are. Even to the extent that someone in your life, like your spouse, can change you, it's actually the allowance or the allowing of God's love to enter into your marriage that changes you. It's not that other person's love, it's that they have submitted themselves to the spirit of love, so that that love can work through them and touch you and work in you and change you. But even then, you still have to make the choice to see that. And if you put it all on them and say it's all them, and this wonderful person saved you, changed you, transformed you, you're missing the point. You might be changed to a certain extent, but until you connect directly to your God and realize that he's the one who took all the risk for you, for your spouse, for everyone in the world, for even the people you hate, then you're never going to quite fully get there. It's not, the motivation is not about knowing you can get fired, rejected, cast away, thrown into everlasting darkness. That is not the motivation. It doesn't work. It never has worked. It can work for a minute to get people's flesh under control in this specific area, just so that their flesh can go crazy in this other area. It can be magnified usually, but it's in a religious area. But religion is carnal, but if you're in religion, you don't see it that way. You just, well, we're the saints, we're the good people. I don't do those things. Do you? No. See, now you're one of us. You're one of the good. So then you're doing this horrific sin of religious pride, and you don't see the carnality of it. You don't see the flesh involved in that. It's just a huge weak spot we have, because we say, well, I don't want to lose my blessings, and I don't want to get his cursings. And that's totally legitimate in their eyes, but it's not legitimate. Well, the only thing that's legitimate is the fact that you have a God who gave himself for you, and that perfect love is the only thing that's ever going to change you. One-on-one individually with your God, or one-on-one individually with your spouse, your friends, your neighbors, your family, whoever it is, that's the only one that's going to transform you. Knowing that you have one that will never fire you, that will never leave you or forsake you. And that's the way it should be, because we do have to have limits. So it's not that I disagree with Dennis that that you should never get divorced. Of course, it's appropriate in some times, but the reason isn't, as he stated, that you have to give someone a motivation. You have to let them know that you'll fire them. It's only you have to let them know that you're not a punching bag that's here to be abused. You know, and they need to treat you with respect. But the way you do that is you respect them and you love them, even when they're not lovable and respectable. It's just that we have limits. We are not God in the flesh. There was one who was God in the flesh, and that was God in the flesh, Jesus Christ. So that's my thought about that, about the notion of motivation and how that works in our lives regarding love and marriage and all those things. Thanks for listening. Have a blessed day in Jesus' name.